Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's event. We're going to be talking about parental education awareness. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you to all the parents and the children who have joined in. Today is going to be very enlightening. And obviously it's called parental education awareness because I feel like lots of parents do not really know what is going on with the UK education system. And those are the things I want us to talk about and discuss and share today. So first of all, welcome and thank you. My name is Lola Basari or Lola Basari, whichever one you want to go with. And I'm the founder of Little Scholars House Education Centre, or LSH. The reason why we're called Little Scholars House Education Centre is because we truly believe that we are a family and we're not just here to teach your children or to talk about education, but to develop the whole child. So the programs that we run, the resources that we expose them to is literally about developing the whole child because we all are in one big family. So there we go. So let's get into it. Before we start, I'm just going to start with an opening prayer. And I know that everyone here might not necessarily believe in God, but it's a decision that we've made, that we do here. I am Christian, and this is my company. And, I felt it's really important to carry the ethos that I believe in what we do. So most of the children here know that whenever they do a piece of work, when they put the date, they need to put ICDAT, which stands for I Can Do All Things, ICDAT. And that was inspired by Yemisi Akindele, who's my mother. And it's just to encourage us as we're working to remember that it's more than just us. And as much as we can study hard and everything, we have to remember the bigger picture that without God giving us strength, then all of this is futile anyway. And if I look at the climate of the world we live in today, where they're pushing certain agendas on to children in their schools, at least this is something that I know we can control the narrative of. So I'm just going to start with a short, brief prayer. So thank you, Jesus, for bringing us all here together. I pray that you'll be with us as we share information and share knowledge. I pray that the spirit of wisdom, knowledge and understanding will be upon all of us and that we will really learn and gain good things through this program tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so let's get into it. So welcome. The things that we're going to be going through today or this evening are primarily about discovering the right school for your child. And that literally starts from as young as early years and preschool, or in some cases from the womb. And we're going to look at, 7 plus, 11 plus, 13 plus entry exams, GCSE and A-level, bursary and scholarships, the difference between boarding and day schools, school exclusions, and education, race and equality. And that last point is something that is even more pertinent now because of everything that was inspired and kicked off by the unfortunate killing of George Floyd. But I think it's really important that we are aware of what's happening when we do send our children to schools that are predominantly white, and there might be aspects of institutional racism in there, but it doesn't mean that it should be a barrier or a deterrent from us approaching these great educational institutions and how we can deal with that. So that will be discussed later on in the program. Okay, then we also have some wonderful guest speakers this evening. We have Anthony Kyler, and we also have Yemisi Akindele, and we also have a lovely lady called Sophie Whitworth, who's the Director of Development at one of the top independent girls' schools. So I hope you guys will enjoy. Okay, so everybody knows Whitney Houston and everyone knows her quote from the lyric from her song. And, I believe that children are the future or our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. And many people think that it's a very typical and cliche quote. But if you are a parent and if you are someone who is involved in the lives of children, then there is no more truth when it comes to children than this kind of quote or expression. And I honestly believe that if every child had the opportunity to be exposed to things that can only be good for them and things that can be helpful, and in terms of drawing out the greatness that's in them, or as Whitney says, the beauty they possess inside, then things will be so much better. And it's so unfortunate that not every child gets that opportunity, even though it could be inside of them. And that's literally why we do what we do here. It's to draw out the greatness in all of the children and to help them get into institutions and places where it will continue to be developed within them. So I'm going to play two short clips for you, and then I'm going to explain why. So here's the first one.
This is a bomb. You all right? This is a bomb. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a bomb. And if it was a bomb, I'd throw it out the window, which is apparently how someone passed his Oxford interview.
This is a bomb.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years, Bill?
With a beard. Thank you.
In a job, I suppose. God, I'll be 27.
Thank you.
In a French-speaking North African country, working in human rights.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ross. Thank you.
I don't know.
Well, what would you like to be doing?
I know what I don't want to be doing.
Okay, what's that?
Raising 3 kids in a 1-bedroom flat. No bloke, no job.
So what would you like?
Well, I suppose I'm good at telling people what to do. I know it's usually just for a laugh, but I could make a good boss, couldn't I? Yeah. I'd like to have my own business.
Thank you, Michaela.
Somewhere in between.
Okay, so I just wanted to share that video with you so that you can see what kind of opportunities people are exposed to or have access to just from being in school. And if you look closely at that video, the children were asked different questions, this is a bomb, what's your initial reaction to it? And that could literally be something that happens in one of these interview questions. They like to be dynamic. They want to see, can you stand on your feet, or are you quick on your feet? What can you come up with? And the question about, vision and goals, where do you see yourself in 10 years time? You can see the diverse a range of answers. So one person was like, in 10 years time, I see myself with a beard, which is okay. But in terms of, having a vision, that's not really going to help you. And what I really like about this clip is the fact that they took the character of Michaela here and started off with what she doesn't want, because she knew what she didn't want, even if she didn't know what she wanted. And the point that I want to make is the fact that in some schools or in some educational institutions, most children are geared towards having an answer. And in the schools that we are trying to, get our children into and to become part of that kind of narrative, is a place where they're shaped in that way, in that direction. The episode that we just watched in this particular school, it's not one of those schools, but the onus was on these 2 teachers who decided to do this in their own time. So not part of the school's ethos or the school's direction or the school's curriculum. The onus was on them to want to do it. And unfortunately, where you only have a small pool of people who are truly concerned about the well-being and the vision and the purpose of your children, it's very easy for children who do carry purpose for it to not become fulfilled or for it to be overlooked or dismissed because they're not around people who can help draw that out of them. And I'll show you the other clip, and the reason why, the reason why I want to play this other clip is
I made a lot of promises when I came here. I haven't kept any of them. This year, I'm going to put that right. I'm the head of the school. Who the hell are you? Your worst nightmare. I don't want this school to be associated with fire and scandal. I want to be a place where people can come and they can change their lives. It's all yours.
Okay, so that right there is literally an example of the type of school that one of our parents had been referred to by the head teacher for her son. And the reason why I wanted to play that clip is because that is not the type of school that the parent had planned for her son to go to. And it just goes to show that whereas parents might have certain expectations for their children, not everyone does. And it's important for us as parents or as people who are involved in the lives of children to understand and to know that not everyone is going to be in your corner. Some people will try and push you off to the rubbish place or the place that's not what you have planned for your child. So it's important for parents to be aware of what kind of schools there are. And when a teacher or someone who's in a position of authority is trying to say, this is where I think your child belongs, you can say, actually, no, I don't. And if the teacher has made that judgment based on the child's current performance, then it's up to the parent to be like, right, child, sit down, let's do some work and let's see, where are you? What is your potential? What can we draw out of you so that they can look at you and say, actually, you deserve more than this. You deserve better than this. Because I personally don't think it's right for children to go to school and be worrying if they're going to get shot in the classroom one day. And it could be children who are so bright and so intelligent, but just because of the environment that they've been placed in, where the people who are around them as their primary educators do not believe in them, then they will literally just get left by the wayside, people who are so bright. So I just wanted to show that as a reality for some parents, to know that this is the kind of place that some of the teachers or even the head teachers of your children's schools are expecting your children to go off to, even though you don't have those kind of plans for them. And feeding into that example is these characters from a show called Top Boy. I'm sure most of you have watched it, most of you have seen it, and most of you saw the story, not the story, you saw Blue Story, which is the film by the same creators of Top Boy. And when I watched it, I just felt so heartbroken because I was just looking at all the potential that were in the lives of these people. And when I looked at their stories, I looked at what caused them to be in those situations. So we had parents who were working all hours of the day and all hours of the night. So they're physically not even there to be able to see what their children are doing, to be able to help them with their homework after school, or to even just be present because they're trying to put food on the table. And I feel like, unfortunately, when people don't care about you, it's easy to just get stuck in that repetitive cycle. So that's how the mum's life was. That's how the child's life will be. That's how the grandchild's life will be. And these are people who could have so much potential to be something great. And if I even look at the ability that they have to run their very successful businesses, even though they're illegal, that takes a lot of planning and good thinking and strategy, which could literally be put into something legal and good, you know? So like the ability is there, it's just when it's been channeled into. And if children like this don't get the opportunities to have their minds channeled and shaped and nurtured in the right places, then they could end up being like people who society looks down upon them so much that even they start to see themselves in that way and don't want to aspire to anything more than being, you know, the king in a local village, you know. So I put this question here. And the reason why I put this question here is because it's a typical 11 plus question, one of the verbal reasoning style questions. And what we're going to do is, over here is a book by one of my students called Dara. It's her 11 plus journey. It's a book that she wrote. She's gone off to Wickham Abbey this September. And I'm going to be giving this book out as a prize to whoever can be the first person to get this answer correct. So I'm going to read out the question and then I want you to put your answer in the chat, okay? So the question says, Jordan's cat is bigger than Amy's cat, but is smaller than Jenna's cat. Fiona's cat is the same size as Wendy's cat, which is bigger than Amy's cat, but smaller than Jordan's. If bigger cats are faster, but smaller cats are more obedient, which of the following lists the fastest and most obedient cat? Is it A, Fiona and Jenna, B, Amy and Jordan, C, Wendy and Jenna, D, Jenna and Amy, or is it E, none of the above? And you have literally 60 seconds to answer that question. And that's literally what you would find in a typical 11 plus exam paper. Now, if children have not been in a place where they've had the opportunity to practice answering this style of question, they're going to find it quite difficult to answer it. Not that it's incredibly difficult, because if you sit down, focus, take your time, maybe draw a map or something, you'll be able to work it out eventually. However, you've got less than a minute to be able to answer that and quickly move on to the next question. In your verbal reasoning question paper, you've probably got about 100 questions that you have to answer. Depending on the exam or the school, you probably have between 50 or maybe 45 and 60 minutes to answer it. So it's not a lot of time. And if you haven't come across something like this before, you will find it more difficult or perhaps more challenging than someone who's used to answering 20, 30 verbal reasoning questions every day, or they go to a tuition center where this is the norm, or they go to an independent primary school, which is a private primary school, where these kind of questions is part of their syllabus. So something you need to understand is in a state school, they follow the Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 syllabus, which doesn't include verbal reasoning, non-verbal reasoning, and the questions you would get in a English and maths 11 plus paper. So children who do go to independent primary schools are working on this kind of thing every day, or for homework, or, you know, regularly. And I'm just going to add now that that's supposed to be the case, because there are a lot of independent primary schools who are taking parents' money but aren't actually delivering. So there are some schools, one school in particular, who used to be very heavy on this kind of thing, and they've slowly been withdrawing that process. So they don't actually offer that anymore, even though if you check on their website, it says that they do. So a lot of parents get drawn in and they're like, oh, I'll just leave it to the school because it says they do this, but actually they don't. So again, parental awareness, you have to understand and know everything that is going on in your child's school. Okay. Right, so over here, this is just a few facts and figures to dissect and digest. So it tells us that we've got a story here, The Haunting Twist of Fate. David was plucked from the East End at 16 and sent to a 35k per year public school. Now he has a top job in Whitehall, but his best friend Stephen was left behind and is serving life for murder. And I remember when this story came out about 2 years ago in 2018, and it was basically about two friends who, you know, had the same ability. I think they came from the same primary school, but went off to two completely different schools. And where the one who ended up in prison for murder has the same ability as his friend, he was not in an environment where that ability was being brought out or nurtured or helped to produce something great, such as working in a top job in Whitehall. So it just also goes to show that it's got nothing to do with, oh, you're dumb or you're smart. Sometimes it's just about what you're entitled to be exposed to that can help you. And just to help you guys to understand exactly what the UK standard education is like, before I even get into the GCSE I want to explain the SATs. So some schools have even scrapped the SATs at Key Stage 1, which is what they do at the end of year 2 when they're 6, 7, age 6 or 7. And the Key Stage 2 SATs is what they sit at the end of year 6. And they're expecting you to have a level 4. And level 4 is the expected level in the UK. That level 4 is the equivalent of like work that a 5-year-old, or actually no, maybe not a 5-year-old, a 6, 7-year-old would be doing in an independent school. And if it's a top independent school, so there are some top independent schools where they do the 7+ exam, and to do really well, even though they might say you don't need tutoring, but to do really well on those 7+ exams, if you're working through workbooks that are by age, then you need to be confidently and comfortable working in the workbook that is for age 9 to 10. So if you've got a 6, 7-year-old working in a workbook that is for age 9 to 10, then that just goes to show you the kind of standard that they will be at when they are actually 10, 11, where the rest of the country is on level 4. So just for you to have an idea. So schools that are not even meeting the expected of level 4, that is very dangerous. That is very serious. So don't feel happy if they say, oh, they're working at the expected target, because even that expected target in comparison to their peers is like almost 3 years behind. Okay. Then for the GCSEs, it clearly tells us here, this was an article from about this time last year, October 2019, more than half of state school pupils are failing to achieve a strong pass in English and math at GCSE. So if you think of all of the state schools in the whole of the UK, only half of them, actually not even half of them, more than half of them are failing. So probably about 40-something% are actually passing their GCSE in math and English. And in this country, even if you're amazing at French or Spanish or geography or whatever, if you do not get your C, your grade C in math and English, then you cannot go on to university. Eventually, you might be able to go through a different back route channel or some other access courses to university, but the standard route, you won't be able to go via the standard route. And literally the country we live in today is telling us that more than half of those kids are not even meeting it. So I'll show you here, this graph shows the statistics of the specific school that I mentioned earlier, I just don't want to mention its name, where the headmistress suggested for one of our parents' sons to go to. And the parent hadn't even heard of that school. You know, they were like, okay, I'm planning for them to go to a grammar school or, you know, a good school like that. And this is the school that the headmistress recommended. And this particular school, only 33.7% of their children managed to get a pass, which is a C in English and math. So in the local authority, so the local area, that's only 38% who managed to do it. And worldwide, not worldwide, nationwide, well, in England anyway, it's 43%. So in England, only 43% of children are passing, which corroborates with this. About more than half of state school pupils are failing to achieve a strong pass. And then in the local authority, so in this specific area, it's only 38.1%. And then this particular school that the headmistress recommended is only 33%. So why would you send your child there knowing that there's a third of a chance that they're going to come out after being there for 5 years with the qualifications that they need, especially when you have put a lot of effort into putting them into a primary school that is supposed to be shaping them for preparing for the exams for the good schools. But these are the expectations that the head of the school has for your child. So it's not good. And again, what I said about making sure that we're being aware about these things, about your child's potential, and fighting for them to say, no, my child can do better than this, my child is better than this, then we have to be very vocal about that and not shy away from it either. Okay, so over here we've got some comparisons. So I've got an example of results from an independent school, some results from a local grammar school, and then a local comprehensive school in the same area. So as you saw on the previous slide, the average in that area was about 38 or something. And it's key and important to know that the area of a school can also affect its performance. So if you have a state school in quite an affluent area, then they generally tend to do quite well. Not amazingly well, but some of them are okay. And that's for the clear fact that people take care of their own. So if you have people who are of a high class, quite affluent, then they're paying their council tax and all of that, they're expecting results, and the government will take care of the areas that are expecting results. They will feed into it. And a typical example of that is, I remember when I was to give birth to my second son, I was in labor at home. I was in pain, and I remember my mom was going to drive me to the hospital, and she was at a wedding and she wasn't actually on her way back yet. And I remember my dad was like, let's just call the ambulance. And I was like, no, don't call the ambulance, because they're going to take me to the local hospital. And the local hospital is not where I wanted to go to, because I know for a fact that because of the fact that the majority of the people who live in that area are ethnic minorities, they do not care. And I'm not just tarnishing everyone with the same brush, but the general consensus is they do not care. I waited so that I could be driven to the hospital across the bridge. So I live in Essex, and I went to Kent to go and give birth, and I held that baby in because I knew that just because the area is a bit more affluent, the resources in the hospital, even the manner and the nature of the staff towards the patients is completely different. It feels like being in a private hospital, and most of the schools there, just the normal state schools, are quite okay because of the people that they cater to. And it's such a unfortunate reality, but that is the truth of it. So if you have the ability to maybe move or rent in another area that is a bit more affluent, then that's also an option for parents to do. Rather than paying school fees, you can just move to an affluent area if you're able to. But it's just for you to know what really goes on in this country, okay? So I'm going to show you, here are the results of an independent school in Essex, and it tells us that 64.9% of all of their GCSEs were either a 9 or an 8. 83% got 9, 8 or 7. 99% were a 5, B or above, okay? So that just goes to show you that in one school where, I'll show you this one here, in one school here where you've got 4.6% passing, this school has 64.9%